To this day.
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 What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Yordines Ugas, Errol the True Spence. The unified welterweight championship bout is all but set, if not set, right? It's projected. And I want to give you my first thoughts on this fight. I think both of these are very good fighters. I think Yordines Ugas is not a spring chicken. I think he's still dangerous. I think he still has a couple good fights left in him, despite his age and despite the age difference. I think Errol the True Spence himself is a very tough, very big, talented welterweight. I don't think that he's the best, but I think he's one of the best. Okay. Now the question is, how good is Errol Spence really? Sean Porter gave him all he can handle. He went 12 rounds with Danny Garcia. Who else? Kell Brook. Because, I mean, that was a lull, right? So, and even with Sean Porter, he looked like he belonged, but he didn't look spectacular. Now, put that in that pot. Another thing you throw in that pot is, before we stir, a lot of people think Ugas beat Sean Porter, including myself. And he didn't get the nod because Sean Porter is that guy, or Sean Porter was that guy. He was the commentator of PBC. He was the clean-cut face of Al Heyman's champions and fighters in that, in his stable. And it meant too much for Sean Porter to lose, because then he couldn't have got that Errol Spence fight to make Errol Spence look good, right? Now, based on a guy like Yordines Ugas, he's been in there with certain fighters that it just didn't go his way. Okay, he's been robbed a couple times. It ain't just the Sean Porter fight. It's been many fights that you look at and you see Ugas and you're like, well, damn, what's going on with Ugas? I think Ugas won that fight. So you get that Emmanuel Augustus type treatment at times when he fights, and he doesn't do enough to lose, but a lot of people don't see that he did enough to win. That type of bullshit. So saying this about this fight, man, if Yordines Ugas beats Errol Spence, I don't think he will win a decision. Okay? Based off what we just previously talked about. If Sean Porter, if you can't decision Sean Porter, you're not going to decision Errol Spence. Errol Spence is the last of the Mohegans. Okay? He's the last hope of Al Heyman when it comes to undefeated fighters. It's his last hope to try to have something like a Floyd Mayweather, if that really exists anymore. I don't really think it does. I think these fighters will never live up to Floyd because they ain't did what Floyd did. Period. They ain't going to make anywhere near Floyd. Those $100 and $200 million fights are fucking over. These are just copycats at this point. Nonetheless, Errol Spence is still a high asset to the PBC. And Yordines Ugas is not. It won't be worth Yordines Ugas stopping Errol Spence. It would be a disaster for a lot of reasons. Marketability-wise, a lot of reasons. Errol Spence will more than likely get the nod in a good fight. In a fight that could have went either way, he's going to win on decision. A fight that that Ugas tipped it just a bit or did enough to win, he will not get the decision. Okay, and I'm telling you guys that now, before we start and be all Kevin McAllister Home Alone and shit, when you see Yordines Ugas beat Errol Spence or do enough to beat Errol Spence and don't get the decision, okay? And I've been telling you guys this for the last 5 to 6 years. Cuban fighters don't get justice, especially black ones. Those Afro-Cuban fighters, they don't get it. They don't have a country. They don't have really support from the country that they're from. They only believe in athletes. See, this is something that a lot of you won't hear the LDBC talk about because it's not part of their initial clan. But I've seen those guys get railroaded. Okay? Him, Lotta, Rigondeaux, right? Those guys don't really get a fair shake because people either don't want to market them. They're very experienced fighters. Some people say they're boring. Some people say they're runners. Some people say a lot of things. Yordines Ugas is anything but a runner. Him or Ortiz, right? But we've seen weird decisions when they're in it. They're not the choice pick. They're good enough to be professional and make some money for their family, but bringing them and catapulting them as superstars, that is a no-go, especially with Al Heyman and the PBC. Okay? So it don't matter what he is and what he looks like. He's not in that inner circle. All right? That's not the case. And I think it's going to be one hell of a fight, and Errol Spence hand will be raised at the end regardless of what happens in that damn fight. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think about this counterpunch concerning Errol the True Spence and Yordines Ugas. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.